one, life.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the last session of Blue Green 101 Mondays at ADEX Pixel Expo. Today we have a special speaker all the way from Brazil to present her very insightful webinar called Marine Memories, the Ocean We Carry Within. Without further ado, let me just introduce Patricia Furtado, the founder of Acqua Mater. Patricia, please.
So, hello everyone. First of all, I'm very happy and very honored to be here, to have been invited by John Taft, by Nora, by Carter, to lead a webinar for the edX community. So it's really an honor. It's the second time I'm with the edX. I have been in Shenzhen in 2017. So I'm really happy to be here. And what I'm going to do now, so I'm going to share a part of my transdisciplinary research on our marine memories. These are stories, experiences I have been collecting almost for 20 years, that it was a way for me to feel more connected to the ocean. And for me, it's not only the ocean, but all the waters. When we connect to the water, we connect also to the ocean, because each drop of water comes from the ocean. So I'm not a scientist, I'm not a biologist. I have an artistic background with a degree in letters and philosophy from the University of Bologna. I lived in Italy for 12 years, and there I started this research while I was studying performance arts. So that's what I will share with you. And since I'm not a scientist, I'm not here to prove anything. What I will bring to you are not unquestionable truths, but are studies from different people from all over the world, countries, and from different years, that they really inspired me. So I will share a little bit with you that it was in reality the very beginning of my research on marine memories. So I will share my screen because there's a lot of things to tell you. So welcome on board. And I will open my screen now. And I will talk about 45 minutes. And in the end, you can send questions through the Facebook or through the Zoom platform that Nora will help me. She'll write down the questions, and we'll have in the end this 15 minutes to answer, and so that I can answer to your doubts. I would love to answer in the middle of the presentation as well, but since we are sharing the screen, it could be a little bit more difficult, and it's a challenge for me to talk to you in English without seeing your faces. So I will just go in the flow, and then you can ask me whatever you want. So I will begin it. Let me share the screen. There we go. So the title, as you already know, it's Marine Memories, the Ocean We Carry Within. And I had to put here the heart, because my heart is in the ocean. So I needed to find blue hearts to put it here. This is the structure. I will start presenting myself, my relation with the diving world, then the beginning of my research, the symbolisms of water and the ocean, and some aspects of evolution, talking about phylogenesis and ontogenesis. I'll talk about seawater as a medicine and the memory of the water. And then I will talk a little bit about this aquatic ape theory, with the big question that is, was man more aquatic in the past? And then I'll just show you a little bit of Acqua Mater's projects for the ocean reconnection. So let's go. Water was the first word I said in my life. I was this little baby. You can see here, I was in the arms of my mother, and I was pointing to a lake, asking to go there. So since my childhood, I have always felt a huge connection to the water. I always wanted to go to the water, to the ocean. I'm from Rio de Janeiro, so we had the beach, but also to rivers, to waterfalls, or at home. I wanted to stay in the shower all the time. So it was a connection that grew in me since my childhood. But I wanted to show you this photo. Maybe some of you have already seen it. This is a scene of the movie The Big Blue. It was directed by Luc Besson. The launch was in 1986. It was inspired by the biography of the French freediver Jacques Mayol. And this film represented a changing point in my life when I saw this movie, because before, for me, the water was just the surface. But when I saw this movie, I really felt, my God, I need to go underwater. I want to cross this limit, this surface, and to know all this underwater universe that is so fascinating. So I started to dive, and here you can see a photo. I was 21 years old. It was in 93. It was the moment I started to scuba dive and to hookah dive. For the ones who don't know what is hookah diving, it's when you have an air compression in the surface of the water, it stays there floating, and you have a kind of pipe that connects you to the respirator, and you can dive underwater feeling free without the scuba. And maybe it's because of this experience that I decided to free dive after, because I love it to be underwater, but to feel free. And this is the modality I love the most nowadays. So you can see it's a photo of last year. I was free diving here in Brazil. And then but free diving as a sport, I just started some years ago, and I'm not a real free diver. I didn't went very deep, but it's a passion. It's really a way. When I dive in the ocean, I feel I'm diving within myself, and this is the strongest experience that free diving brings to me. So let's go to the beginning of my research. Well, in reality, I have been inspired by another research that is called sensitive dance, that belongs to this environment of the performing arts. And this research is led by a French choreographer called Claude Coldy and a French of osteopaths called Jean-Louis Dupuis and Marie Guillaume. They started it a lot of years ago, and I have participated to this experience between 93 and 2005. It's a somatic practice that in that period was investigating the origins of our movements by relieving various stages in the process of verticalization of human being. So a part of their research was dedicated to what we call our aquatic origins. And that was what interested me the most. And I dedicated 2 years in that moment of my university to go inside this research of the marine memories. In the beginning, doing the workshops they were leading, I will show you now some photos, but then going to the books also. So there was at that time this workshop that was called Marine Memories and Birth into the Terrestrial World. So we were going to a desert beach in the south of Italy in the attempt to awake our old aquatic memories, the memories that are registered in our body. So there was all a preparation of how to enter the ocean. How can you connect in the beginning through the breath? Then we were like a shoal, all this group together with these floating bags, crossing the sea for half an hour so that we could arrive in this beach that had no access by car. So we had the opportunity to be working that completely alone, in silence, going deep in this experiencing, feeling as if we were animals. So we were like revisiting these stages of the phylogenesis as if we were fish turning into amphibians, or from amphibians into reptiles and then into mammals, and how what we would experience by going back to the ocean again as the cetaceans did years ago. And how was how were we entering the ocean, for example? We were having this experience, never entering the ocean through the vertical position, because we had to go in parity with the ocean. So as animals, we were in the same level. Our eyes were always entering the ocean by the sand and then going out in the same level, so that we could feel in our body, for example, this changing. What do we feel when we are underwater and we must go out, and we feel our belly glued into the floor, so we feel the weight of our body? What do we feel in our structure when our fins become the poles of the animals, when it has to look in the direction of the horizon, and all the development of our vertebral spine starts to develop? So we were like experiencing everything inside our bodies. Here's some other images. We were like trying to feel as marine turtles going inside the water after delivering its eggs, for example, and how to leave all this process of going back to the water. What could we feel by relating to the ocean with another kind of quality, of sensitivity, of awareness? And we were practicing apnea here because we were inspired by the anaerobic organisms. Since we were looking for our aquatic origins, we thought, oh, we must experience how the first organisms felt, because they were not using the oxygen. So what it represents to breathe, to hold the breath. And we were also using the monofins. So as you can see, we were not practicing the sport here. We were trying to discover in our body the sensations of swimming, of dancing as a dolphin, as a whale, finding all these ondulatory movements and feeling free underwater. Sometimes we were alone, sometimes we were with other people around. So the first time I tried the monofin, it was in 2002, entering the water as an animal like this. But for me, what is important here is to tell you that it was really an incredible experience in my life, because I was in that period, it was like one week or 2 weeks doing this experience every day. My dreams were incredible. I was really feeling things that I couldn't explain, what I was feeling, what I was seeing, what I was dreaming. So I had these big questions. It was like, how to explain the awakening of memories that, although familiar, were totally unknown to me. It was like I was remembering, but I had never lived this before. And how to explain the remembrance of sensations experienced in my mother's womb or during my childbirth. How to explain the call of the sea. How to explain this strong connection I was feeling, that it was not a mental connection, but it was through the experience of my body and through the unconscious images that were coming while I was sleeping in my dreams. So I had to answer, and I couldn't answer just by practicing. That's why I went to the books, I went to the theory, and the first step was to study the symbolisms of water and ocean. I'll just show you some of the researchers that inspired me in the beginning of this research. There's this French poet and philosopher that is called Gaston Bachelard. He has a book called Water and Dreams. And in this book, he talks about all the different waters of the ocean, of the lakes, of the rivers. And he talks about clear waters, springtime waters, running waters, deep waters, feminine waters, fresh waters, violent waters. What does all these waters represent to our emotions, to our memories, with what we can connect through all these waters? And he was saying, for example, that for the children, he believes that the first children's dreams are organic memories. So he states that children dreams with water, with mountains, with forests, because they are more connected to the organic environment of the womb of their mother. So they didn't experience life as we do later. So the water comes very strongly in the dreams of the child. Then I started to study Joseph Campbell. He is very known. These are two known books from him, The Power of Myth and The Hero with a Thousand Faces. He says that the myths are the echoes of the first mankind stories. And in these old stories, we always find a connection between the deep ocean and between the cosmos. That's why it exists the expression that is a cosmic ocean. Because we don't know a lot about the space, as we don't know a lot about the ocean. And we know that in reality, nowadays, we know more about the space than about the deep ocean. But these are two universes that are unknown. And what they bring together is this about water, that is the matrix of life, because our ocean was formed by water. So there's this relation between the ocean, the waters, and the cosmos. That's why he talks about the cosmic eggs, that it's a figure that appears in so many world ancient mythologies, as we can find in the Egyptian, Babylonian, or Polynesian mythologies or cosmogonies. There are beautiful stories about this. So you can find so many connections between the ocean, the cosmos, and the water and the seas through all these old stories. There's a story that I like a lot. It's called, in the myths, Campbell refers to it like the night sea journey. You can find, for example, you can find big fishes or whales or marine monsters that they have a human being inside their body. Probably they have swallowed this human being, and this fish crosses the ocean, going towards the direction of the sun, going to the east. And when this hero, this man, completes this odyssey and arrives in the other side, he arrives there completely transformed. It's a myth of rebirth, of arriving into another world, being completely different. There is another researcher that wrote a lot about it. He's called Frobenius. And in all mythologies, you can find this myth. So it's a transformation that takes part while an odyssey that happens in the water, in the ocean. And for sure you have heard about Carl Gustav Jung. He's a Swiss psychiatrist and psychotherapist. And he talks that the ocean is the huge symbol of our collective unconscious. So all this unconscious, it's like a repository of primordial images that are the archetypes. And you can also see these archetypes in all cultures around the world since antiquity, because these archetypes are like universal typical forms and patterns. That's why we don't know about our brain, what happened before, which memories do we carry. So it's like an ocean we carry, even through this unconscious collective, because the ocean is our common ancestor. Each one of us come from the ocean. So this is what we all have in common in Brazil, in Asia, in every place on our planet Earth. So I used to say that the ocean is our ancestor. It's the ancestor we all have in common. So we see that image of the primordial ocean as the great symbol of the unconscious, and the vastness of the ocean symbolizes the vastness of the unconscious mind. So ocean and water, they're always saying, sometimes they talk about ocean, sometimes about sea, sometimes about water, sometimes about the cosmos. So they're like the same thing somehow. So they all hear Bachelard, Campbell, and Jung, even if each one of them uses their own terminologies, they're all saying the same symbol. They're always talking about ocean, sea, and water with the same symbols. So we can see that not only them, but different religions, myths, philosophies, cosmogonies, and ancient cultural traditions, they bring water, sea, and ocean as the source of life, of fertility, a place of transformation, of impermanence, regeneration, and purification. So we have this place of this idea of birth, death, and rebirth, as I showed you in this myth of the big fish that is crossing the ocean. This is a statement of Heraclitus. Probably you heard about him. He says, "No man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he is not the same man." He says also, "There is nothing permanent except change, and everything flows, nothing stands still." So the water as this place of impermanence, everything changes all the time, even reality, it's not still, never ever. And of course, so the waters are also related to our emotions. You have so many different kinds of waters, as I told you, Bachelard wrote in his book. And our emotions, they can reflect all these waters. They are not the waters, because the waters, they react to something. So all these waters here are reacting to the environment and to the atmosphere that is in this very moment. But so I was studying all these symbols, but then I was still asking myself, my God, after all that, what was this primordial ocean? Because you read, but this seems to be just abstract information. And so I was asking to myself, how did these ancestral traces, which were sleeping in the deepest zone of my psyche, become tattooed on my primitive brain? Because it is registered in our cells, these memories. So I said, God, I must now start to read about biology, about science to understand it. So I started to study the phylogenesis and the ontogenesis. The ontogenesis is the development of life from the moment of conception of the human being during his entire life. But of course, I was focusing in the 9 months where we were living in the liquid environment. And then I was studying the evolution of life since the first living cell of the primordial ocean, and then looking how life had developed in all these branches that we can see nowadays, even inland. And the first researcher for me, it was Ernest Haeckel. He was a German biologist, naturalist, philosopher, and doctor. And he is amazing. And I really indicate you to look in the internet. You can find all the information. He has incredible drawings about the primitive marine organisms of the ocean, not only shells, but everything. He studied so much about the marine life. And I was very inspired by this book that is called Evolution of Man. And here he talks about this law that is called the biogenetic law. He says that the ontogeny recapitulates the phylogenesis. What is that? The development of the embryo of an animal from fertilization to gestation, what is the ontogeny, goes through stages resembling successive adult stages in the evolution of the animal's remote ancestors. So here you can find again what I was doing in the beach with the research of the sensitive dance. We were putting together the phylogenesis and the ontogenesis, because while I was at the sea in apnea underwater, I had these memories of when I was at my mother's womb. So both memories, they are related one to the other. You can find, for example, these are ideas of Haeckel. He shows, for example, that during the ontogenesis, we relive some phases, some stages of the phylogenesis. We can see, for example, during the first weeks, we have our tools are together with the membrane as the fish were. So it seems we had fins instead of hands in the first moments. So the development of the feet and the hand of a human being in different embryonic stages. So it's like we have already had the fins. as we already have even the tail, for example. In the first 5 weeks, our tail is bigger than our head when you see this kind of letter C of the embryo. And we have this tailbone, for example, till nowadays. This is the trace of the tail we had during the first period of the pregnancy. Even the branchial arches we had, it seems the gills of a shark, for example. We had these fissures here in the side of the body, but with the development of the embryo, all these gills, they became the lower jaw of our face, and they have developed also into the auricular bones. So it's like this part of our structure, it's a trace of this memory of the ocean as well. So we don't have the branchial arch, but there's a development of that. Even here we have, you can see in the first image, it seems an apple. This is the formation of the primitive track that with the development becomes the dorsal cord of the embryo. You can see here the image, the primitive track formation during gastrulation, and then the formation of the dorsal cord. And this is a memory, for example, it's the oldest structure that take us back to the sea. And there's a similarity, for example, to this old creature of the ocean that is called Pikaia. So we can see, we can study these forms. Here I showed you the Amphioxus and the lancelet. It's like the beginning of the formation of our spine, of the medulla. We have it in our body. This is a drawing of Haeckel that shows the development of different embryos. So we can see, for example, the fish, the salamander, the turtle, the chicken, the pig, the cow, the rabbit, and the human embryo. In the first phases, they are very similar one to the other. Then, of course, the development is completely different, but in the beginning is the same. So we do carry within all the potentiality of the species that precede us, all instincts they survive in our psyche, from the biotic reflexes of the first living cell of the primordial ocean to the words babbled by our ancestors. So that's why I repeat, we are a repository even of all these memories from the primordial ocean and all the lives that precede us. And we know that all species come from the ocean, as our life begins in the sea of our mother's womb. That's why I talk about our aquatic origins. We have an aquatic life in the beginning. As I told you before, the human embryo is living a wholly aquatic life, bathed in the amniotic fluid, which represents for it the water in which the embryos of fish and frogs move about freely. So it's like in the first moments of our life, it is as if we are inside an egg with water inside as other species. Then I started to study another biologist that is called Alan Jaworski. He was not very accepted by the scientific community because he was like a little bit out of the box. He was comparing, for example, the little cell of our bodies with all our structure as if we were a big cell, but as if all the planet Earth is a big cell also, as our galaxy and the Milky Way is also a big cell. So he was studying, comparing all the structures of the universe, saying it's all the same life. The only difference has to do with the proportions, with the sizes, but all the chemical elements and all the structures, they are the same. These are some books that had inspired my research. They are just in French. I think they have never been translated into English, but there are some information written in English about his studies about the microcosmos and the macrocosmos in internet. And he was stating, for example, that the human body unites in itself all the living creatures which now exist upon Earth and which have existed since the origin of life. And man has internalized all phases of life that precede us. And he says that our organs are complexified marine organisms. So, you know, you can see that things, they have been repeated in different way by different researchers. But here it's very interesting for me, this statement that our organs are complexified marine organisms. So he does a parallel, for example, between our kidneys and the sea sponge, because these structures are very similar, but even with their function of filtering the water. So it's a memory we have. He compares the brain coral with our brain, and even with a nutshell, for example. He compares our heart with a jellyfish, with this function of pulsation, this movement in the water, in the liquid environment. He compares the octopus tentacles with our intestines. So he go on with so many comparisons to show that we carry an ocean inside. Of course, things are not simple as it can seem, because if we go deeper in the studies of biology, there's this topic of convergent evolution. We can look at a shark and at a dolphin, and we say that they are similar, but we know that the branches are very different. So I'm just telling you these stories because they are inspiring, but we would have to go much deeper to say, it's not that my kidneys, they arrive directly from the sponges of the sea. Of course, it's not that simple, but the structures, the functions, and the origins are in the ocean. So that's why I say we are a verticalized ocean. We are a walking aquarium. Life went out of the ocean, but with the water that came through the hydric cycle, for example, the water cycle, life just exists in land because the ocean could move into land inside our body, through the clouds, through the body of the other animals, with the trees, everything, for example, that has this kind of life. And now I'll talk to you about seawater as medicine and about the memory of water. So since the antiquity, the seawater was used to cure different diseases. As you can see here in China, in the 4000 before Christ, they were already practicing the thalassotherapy, that is the cure with seawater. Euripides in the Old Greece said that the seawater cures diseases. Even Hippocrates, it's like the father of the Western medicine. He was prescribing the use of seawater. And Plato, for example, the philosopher, he went to Egypt to treat himself with seawater. So we can see the properties of the ocean to cure. And now I will tell you about the research run by René Canton. He was a French biologist, physiologist, and humanist. He created this plasma. So in 1897, he proved that there were similarities between the mineral composition of seawater and the interstitial milieu and blood plasma. And he concluded that, I think that my image had, maybe you cannot see me here. Can you listen to me, Nora? Because I saw that my image. Can you listen to me?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So I will go on. I will go on. So let me come back here. So he has two books. That is Canton, Le Sérum de la Vie, the Serum of Life, and another one that's called Seawater, Organic Medium. He says that any living being, irrespective of its place in the animal hierarchy, was and continues to be a marine aquatic creature whose cells are born and live under the same aquatic conditions in which primitive cells first formed. And he treated so many children and adults in different countries of the world, especially during the Second World War, with his serum, for example. He created these famous marine dispensers, as I told you, throughout France and abroad, where he used an intravenous injection of ocean plasma to fight disease like cholera, malaria, typhus, tuberculosis. So what he was doing, he was going to the ocean, catching the sea water. After that, yes, he was treating this water to purify it somehow, and then he was injecting this water, putting it in contact with our blood. And the idea is that our blood in contact with the seawater could regenerate, because it would have the contact with these oceanic memories that had, and we could become stronger. And then he proved that for all the scientific community. So he was really recognized as a scientist who used seawater to treat diseases. We can see here some blood vessels of our body. And as I told you, the composition of our body is very similar to the composition of seawater. We have salt, for example, the concentration of salt, that is sodium and chlorine. Of course, the concentration in the seawater is much higher than in our blood. That's why we cannot drink seawater. But a part of it is very similar, the salt and the ions. And now I just wanted to tell you about Jacques Benveniste. He was a French immunologist. He became very famous working with the osteopathy, but he was the one who first used this expression, the memory of water. He said that water retains the memory of substances with which it comes in contact, even when they are no longer present. So that's why he was trying to explain the efficacy of of homeopathy, because you can take this medicine that is recognized, and it's like a part of this has the memory with the substances it was in contact before through the water. Probably you heard about Masaru Emoto. He was also very criticized from the scientific community, but he started with these books, with this research about the hidden messages in the water. He was saying that the water keeps the memory of the sounds, of the vibrations, and of the words that it comes in contact with, for example. So he was taking molecules of water. He was freezing these molecules of water and putting them in contact with different sounds, as I told you. And after he was photographing these images, and they were completely different. For example, the same water that came from the same source. It was in the room with like a music of Johann Sebastian Bach, and in another room with a heavy metal music. And then he would take again these two waters, would photograph, and the molecules were structured in different ways. So it's very interesting to read, even if science doesn't agree with his researches, but it is inspiring for me. Now I'll talk to you about the aquatic ape theory or hypothesis. This first question, was man more aquatic in the past? So here I bring you four researchers. The first one is Max Westenhofer. It was the first one who talked about this theory. Then there was Alistair Hardy, Desmond Morris, and Elaine Morgan. So what is this aquatic ape theory? The idea, the basic principles is that a branch of apes that were, for example, in the trees, they were forced over terrestrial habitats to hunt for food because there was a scarcity. And some of them have returned to the water to eat seashore and seabed animals like shellfish, leading to adaptations. And this theory says that, for example, we have an ancestor that is more close to this aquatic ape that went out from the water, the one surrounded by the blue circle, than by the other terrestrial ape surrounded by the green circle, for example. That's what they say. So it's like, that's why we have more similarities with the cetaceans than with the chimpanzees. So you can see here the book written by Max Westenhofer. It was published in 1942. He was saying that adaptation to water has played a significant part in the history of human development. Then Alistair Hardy started his research upon Westenhofer theory, and he published this article at a magazine called The New Scientist in 1960 with this question: was man more aquatic in the past? And you can find all this article in the internet. Then other studies came. The first one here, as I told you, Desmond Morris, with this book called The Naked Ape. It was published in 1967. And then this woman, a writer that is called Elaine Morgan, she published a book that is called The Descent of Woman. She was inspired by the other ones, by Desmond Morris, by Alistair Hardy, and she continued developing this theory. And you can find other books written by Ellen Morgan, as The Aquatic Ape, a theory of human evolution, published in 1982. But then there were other books. And you can find a very nice TED Talk in the internet with Ellen Morgan explaining her vision of this theory. So there are a lot in the internet to investigate. Some of the characteristics they indicate that put us closer to the aquatic apes, for example, hairless, subcutaneous fat. They say, for example, that in the chimpanzees, you can find a concentration of the layers of fat around the organs. And instead, human being, as the cetaceans, we have these layers of subcutaneous fat in all our body, and it was for protection of the cold waters. We have the regression of the olfactory organ. We have webbed fingers. Somehow we can see these membranes within our tools. The direction of the body hair, if you look at the chimpanzee, for example, you can see the hair growing in all different directions. While if you see a human being that has a lot of hair in the body, when it goes in the water, it seems that the hair does a hydrodynamic drawing going in the same direction. And it could be a trace of our aquatic origins. The location of the trachea in the throat and the breath control. There are just some animals and just, I think, one or two kind of apes that can dive in apnea, for example, because they don't have a structure prepared for it as we have with our nose and our trachea. The front-facing copulation that is typical from the cetaceans and even about human beings. The tears and eccrine sweating, bipedalism that started with wedding upon this theory. These are just some of the characteristics, but there are much more. Now we have other books, so the research is continued. So in 2011, there was a book that was called with the same title as Alistair Hardy article, Was Man More Aquatic in the Past? And then last year, it was published this other book that is called The Waterside Ape, an alternative account of human evolution. So this is a drawing. You can find it in the internet. Of course, I cannot go inside it with you now, showing so many characteristics that could prove, at least they try to prove, that we were more closer to this aquatic ape than to the terrestrial ape. It's part of the book, this book here, The Waterside Ape. And you can even look for some episodes at the BBC website. There's David Attenborough, a nature historian and a broadcaster. He believes in this theory as well, and he talks a lot about it in a podcast you can find online. And above, you can see a photo. It was from the launch of this book here, The Waterside Ape. So it was from last year. You can see David Attenborough, you can say Peter Evans, the author of the book, and then Garrett Morgan, that is the son of Ellen Morgan, the woman I told you before. So these people are connected. And nowadays, the scientists that are researching this theory, they're more sometimes from South Africa and from England. There's even a Brazilian who is working on this theory as well. And now I will just indicate you some other researchers that had inspired me a lot. There's this Russian man called Igor Charkovsky. There's a book written about his research upon the water babies. Igor Charkovsky also believed in the aquatic ape theory, and he was saying that women in pregnancy should stay almost all the time inside the water. He said that the babies should born inside the water and could be breastfeeded inside the water as well, because he believes that the only way for us as human beings to evolve more is going back to the water, because while we are in the water, we don't use a lot the oxygen. So our brain can do other synapses. We can become more intelligent somehow. And even physically, we could develop more as much time we stay in the water because of this use of the less use of oxygen, because we don't have to fight against the gravitational force. So, and he says that the instincts of our babies reflect our evolutionary past, our aquatic past. And a lot of times he took mothers to the Black Sea to give birth inside the water with all the dolphins around. So the dolphins were like working as nurses to help the mother to give birth, because through the sonar, the dolphins were connecting to the babies inside the belly of their mother before birth. So they would help the birth of the babies in seawater. Here is just a photo. Sometimes he was like building aquariums so that women could stay in the water with their babies, even breastfeeding the babies inside the water. It's very amazing, his research. There's even this other researcher, he's very known, Michel Audin. He's a French obstetrician and he's a childbirth specialist. He studied a lot with Frédéric Leboyer, that is the very famous obstetrician that started with the research of the non-violent birth. And Michel Audin has this book that is called Water, Birth and Sexuality. And he believes in the aquatic ape theory as well. And he says that we have some diseases that we have because of this aquatic origin. So we have asthma, acne, seborrhea, and dislocated shoulders, webbed toes, because they are memories of these aquatic origins, the characteristics and features that we don't find in chimpanzees, for example. And here is my myth, Jacques Mayol, as I showed you in the beginning. And he has this book that is called Homo Delphinus, a Dolphin Man, that it's a fantastic book. It was like a Bible in the beginning of my research. A lot of people that I presented to you here were featured by Mayol in this book. He talks about the call of the sea. He talks about the aquatic ape theory. He relates our life and our aquatic and oceanic origins. So I really indicate this book for you. It's really amazing. And here it's the book of Guillaume Néry. It's already translated into English. It's called Depth. And I have translated this book into Portuguese because it touched me so much. And I just wanted to read you this phrase. Guillaume says, it's about liberating archaisms, expanding potential, immersing yourself in an element known for a long, long time. We must try to find a black box that we all have since immemorial times. So yes, so much possibilities we have, guys, in contact with the ocean. Here it's the Portuguese, the Brazilian edition of his book, the one I have translated. And now I will just, to finish, show you a little bit about what I have been doing with my organization that is called Acqua Mater. So how I'm dealing with the marine memories today. So what I have been doing to awake my marine memories and our marine memories through the workshops I lead, through the experiences I lead, because I give talks, conferences, courses, but I also take people to the water to discover these aquatic memories. So what I have been doing, I have been promoting and practicing free diving and also participating at aquatic dances, meditations and therapies, meetings, workshops and courses. I have always been looking for a creative way to establish a deeper connection to the ocean, even through the air we breathe, because as you know, much of the air we breathe doesn't come from the forest. Yes, some of the air, yes, but the major part comes from the ocean. So even if you are in the desert, you breathe the ocean. And all the waters that inhabit and surround us, each drop of water in land is a daughter of the ocean. So we can connect to the ocean even through all the waters. I put here some examples. For example, when we talk about water, we have our inner waters, the waters of our body, because as you know, almost 70% of our cells, of our entire body, and of the living part of our planet is composed by water. And there is water inside all the living beings, all the animals, all the trees, the forests. We know that there is no green without the blue. So to see the life of all the forests, they need water. So they have water underground, in there, and there's water in the air. We can see the natural fresh waters and the rain, for example. They are also, they come from the ocean as well. And even through domesticated waters, the water that comes from our shower, from our taps, or the water we find in the swimming pool, yes, they have a lot of chemicals. They arrived very far away a lot of time ago from the ocean, but they still carry the memory. So for example, now in quarantine times, for me, I'm closed in my apartment, and each time I have my shower, I take my bath, sometimes I close my eyes and I think, this water came from the ocean. I cannot free dive now. I cannot go to the beach, but I can feel the ocean in my body through my inner waters, through what I eat, from the water I drink, but even through the waters I came in contact with. This is just a suggestion of lecture of a book called Blue Mind, the surprising science that shows how being near, in, on, or underwater can make you happier, healthier, more connected, and better as in what you do. So it's a very inspiring book. And I'm concluding here. So what am I promoting to reconnect people to the ocean? That's why I have this workshop, Acqua Mater experience. In reality, there are personal sections I lead, workshops that can just last for 1 day or 2 days, or immersions of 1 week. They all take place inside the water and allow us to disconnect from the day-by-day urban rhythms and to reconnect us with our inner ocean, first of all. Beginning from the inner ocean, we can then connect to the big ocean around with another kind of awareness and sensitivity. Some photos of works I have been following or leading in the Amazon, in Portugal, in Brazil, sometimes doing the courses, sometimes leading. This was in Portugal, a workshop that I led with a friend of mine, Violeta Lapa, first in the swimming pool, and then we took people to free dive in the ocean. For some of them, it was the first time. So how can you connect to the ocean, but not directly through the sport itself, but with this other kind of sensitivity and awareness? Here is a workshop I led in Rio de Janeiro, sometimes working with people, they were blinded. Sometimes I use this tissue and they feel like they are in the uterus, in the womb of their mothers with all the group around. So it's a way to dive in your inner waters, first of all. Then I took these people to the ocean to experience another kind of relation of connection to the ocean, with the support of the group, with people that were free dive instructors that could give all the support, because as you know, security is very, very important when we work in the water, and especially in the ocean. And this is the photos of a film we will share here through the ADEX next week. It's a film I worked with children and it's called We Are Water. So I invite you to this movie. It's the experience I was taking just these children to natural water for the first time. Like I was inspiring them to dive and to connect to the ocean, even if they were here diving in the lake, because these are vulnerable children from the inner side of Brazil, and they have never had any contact with a natural body of water before. So before taking them to the ocean, I thought they should experience the waters of their region, because as I told you, even these water come from the sea. And I have been participating also in the projects of other people. Here it's a documentary produced in Brazil that is called The Missing Water. And this film investigates the reasons why people refuse to properly care for a good that is fundamental to life. And I used to say water is not only a good or a resource. Water is a living organism that is the matrix of any kind of life. So treating the water inland, even the water that we see as a resource, we are caring for our ocean. That's why I used to talk about the synergy between the SDG 6, that is water and sanitation, and SDG 14, that is life below water. And I participate in some projects of ocean conservation as well. Here I was performing in a project that was talking about plastic pollution in the sea. Some other projects of photos of Ari Amaranti taking photos to show our water connection, how we can feel home underwater. So sometimes I do photos like this. And to conclude here, to show the moment where I was at the edX Shenzhen with my friend Thais Iris. I don't know if she's here, and with other people that came from all over the world to participate. I was invited by Mermaid Ocean Alliance to be there. And to conclude, I say that it was at the bottom of the sea, while diving and dancing underwater in silence, that I have learned the most important things I know about the water. The ocean was and will always be my greatest master. Every time I need to integrate into my body what the books are telling me or what I learn along the way, I need to go back to its womb. It's the only place where everything makes sense. And from this place, I can share with the world what I have to offer. So I conclude here. I will go back to the image and maybe we have some questions. Let's see.
Patricia, thank you so much for a very insightful and very inspirational presentation, I must say. And we do have a lot of questions, to be honest.
Wow.
Okay.
So you can go on and I will try to answer, because as I told you, this is all the inspiration for my research. I'm not a biologist or a scientist. I come from the arts, but I believe that all of this can help us to connect to the ocean, even if it's not the truth from the science. So go on.
It's a very interesting and amazing theory, I must say. There's a question here from, it's not really a question, it's a statement actually, from Yuki Wong.
Yeah.
That you're amazing, dear. Finally got a chance to listen to your sharing. And Yuki sent us a heart.
Oh, Yuki, it's now the director of MFI. I'm also an MFI ambassador. It's Mermaid Federation International. I met these people, these mermaids in Hong Kong in 2017 after the edX Shenzhen, and they're doing a great job for promoting mermaiding as a sport as well.
Yes, indeed. MFI and Yuki has been doing a fantastic job in trying to promote mermaiding and conservation in general. Okay, there's another one. Phylogenesis. Mind explaining a little bit more, and how's that connected to the ocean?
Yes, you think the phylogenesis is the story of evolution on the earth. So you think that life began in the ocean. Of course, there are different theories exactly for the beginning of life, but we can say that life began there. There was a cell that started to be separated and multiplied. And all the living organisms we can find on the earth, it came from the ocean. So you have a lot of books in internet, for example, information even in internet. I started studying Darwin, for example, that is the most famous evolutionist. So, for example, even if we have now all the branches of animals, of the trees, all the fauna and the flora in the earth, all this life came from the ocean. So the phylogenesis is the story of evolution on earth.
I see. Okay. There's another one from Francesco Barros.
Yeah.
I would like to have Patricia, if she believes that some people naturally, genetics or evolution, have strong connections with the ocean. That's the first question or statement. Second is it just the way that people experience life, family, environment, etc.? And the third point is a bit of both. And the last point is something else.
Wow. I would say,
see that?
so I would say there's a Lebanese poet that I like a lot. He's called Khalil Gibran, and he says that, and he says that each human being is a planet to be visited. So of course, there's no rules, there's not a unique law for what we feel, for what we experience. The fact is, we carry all this memory of all the living organisms that precede us. So how to be in contact with this, how to express this, it's different for each person. Somehow I can feel more connected to the ocean because of what I lived, but sometimes you can find a person, for example, that had never had a direct contact to the ocean, but there's something in his living that connects it, even if by an unconscious level. So it's difficult to answer this question because there's not a recipe. For each human being, this connection is different. And even the search of this connection is different. What I shared with you today, it was my own path, what I did to understand the kind of connection I had. And I tried to awake it in people, but for each person is different. For example, we can talk about the fear of water. There are people that they lived some traumas in their childhood. So you say, okay, this person fears the water because it lived this trauma. But there are other people that had never lived a trauma in the water, and sometimes not even their parents. So why they fear water? Sometimes it is linked to these archaic memories that we have tattooed in our brain, in our reptile brain, because in the primitive times, for example, people used it to fear the ocean because it was a place of the big monsters, as they are fearing the cosmos, everything that could come from the sky. So somehow, I cannot explain how, but somehow some people feel this fear that don't belong to themselves or to their parents or to the closest ancestors. But this fear can come from very much times. These are the mysteries. That's why the water and the ocean is connected to the mystery, to something that transcends us. And water is the place of the memory. Water carries all these memories. So it's impossible to say there is a way to answer this question. It's not a recipe. You must search. How is it for you?
Pat, last question, Pat. Yes, this water came from the ocean. Cannot agree more. This workshop is amazing. And she asked, from your opinion, what does ocean means to you?
Well, what ocean means to me? Well, I can tell you that I founded Acqua Mater in 2017. after I have done so many different things in my life. I have worked with the arts, with theater. I have worked in private companies of energy. I have been teaching at the universities in courses of post degrees of environmental education. But at a certain point, I felt I had to give back to the water and to the ocean everything that the water and the ocean gave to me. In my childhood, as I showed you before, I have always felt this huge connection to the water and to the ocean. And it was like the place of love for me. During all my life, when I was feeling bad or alone, I used it to look for the water and to the ocean. It was like the womb of tenderness, of caress, of love for me. So the ocean for me represents the big womb of Mother Earth, of the universe. And through the ocean, I feel connected to the cosmos, because we know that the water that fulfills the ocean, it came from the cosmos. Of course, there are different theories. Part of this water came from the inner part of the earth, but even the earth is a daughter of the cosmos. So it's a way to feel that I'm nothing. The ocean for me puts me in my real place. I'm no one, I'm nothing. I'm just a portion of molecules, and I'm made with the same matter of the stars chemically. The ocean is the place of connection to the mystery. Some people can call it God. I don't call it God, but I say it's the mystery of life, the vastness of the ocean of the unknown.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for your time and your very, I must say, very philosophical theory. And I think it's a really fantastic share. As you can say that, as you can see that all the questions that are asked is very, I don't know. I think it's very insightful, I must say. I look forward to next week's showcase of your video.
Yes.
Yeah, and we can talk a little bit more on that bit as well. Thank you so much. And I just want to share what's going to happen for the next 2 days. I'm just going to share my computer for a bit. Okay. Oh, sorry. Please excuse my... It's exactly like what happened yesterday. Pat. Messy desktop. All right. So what's happening on Thursday and also on Friday is that we have a couple of really good panel discussions as well. We had just concluded with cave plastic pollution earlier on, and also the mermaid discussion. And the next one that we should look forward to tomorrow is the underwater rugby presentation, and the topic is called A New Future for Underwater Rugby. And on Friday, there's two panel discussion that's happening. One is on blackwater photography, and the next one is on the Cave Explorer Roundtable. So let me just quickly do a quick run on Thursday. So Thursday, 5 p.m. Singapore time is a fireside chat with Shireen Tang as the host and Alan Tam and Yuki Wong as the invited guests, and they are going to talk about the journey in transforming mermaiding into a system. Followed by exhibitor product showcase by the one and only John Sadden, where he will rehash about Scuba Po's milestone and special product showcase as well. At 8 p.m. Is the panel discussion that I was talking about, A New Future for Underwater Rugby, moderated by Key. Panelist is Isaac Tan from Singapore, Julia Bronek, if I got the name right, from Austria, Celine Steinfeld from Australia, Bobby Simonson from Sweden, Tarkan Lalili from Turkey, Lorena Bianchi from Germany, and Wolfgang Tress from Germany. On Friday, we'll launch with a panel discussion called A Different Perspective, The Art of Black Water. This one will be moderated by Scott Twasson, and with a very, very strong panel of and diverse blackwater photographers, followed by an exhibitor showcase by Dune World, titled Dream Now and Dive Later, followed after which is a exhibitor showcase by SSI Provides Solution in a Time of Crisis. The speaker will be JC Monacon from Switzerland, and also Corina Davids from Austria. And last but not least is the panel discussion on Cave Explorer, moderated by Julien 14 from France, Brian Kakouk from Bahamas. Apparently he's a legend, I must say. Jill Heiner from Canada, C. Mikam from Mexico, Robin Cuesta from France, and also Bruce Conafay from USA. And do not also forget, on Friday, we do have our Happy Hour Friday session. Sorry, just give me a little moment. Yes. So it's going to start 9:45 p.m. Singapore time. Just join this link. What you need to actually have to attend this this happy hour party, so-called, is just to have a glass of wine or a bottle of beer, because we are, after all, divers, right? So divers likes to drink. Yeah. So we look forward to see everyone in the next couple of days. And last but not least, thank you, Patricia, for your time and a very insightful and a very inspiring presentation. And please stay a little longer. Our next film showcase will be on. I'm sorry. The next film showcase will be on a very good ocean film as well. So once again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nora. Thank you, everyone. And I say it's an opportunity you have to go inside all these events organized by the edX people. They are doing an incredible job. And about all the philosophy I said, I could just finish telling you, you can just put everything in a trash can, go to the ocean, because the most incredible and incredible experiences we just have when you go and you are in a physical connection with our origin. So thank you, Nora, again. Thank you, the Alex, for everything.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next week, yeah, Patricia?
See you, of course. See you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is underwater rugby. It's basically rugby. With fins instead of shoes.
A ball that sinks, not floats.
With baskets instead of goal line. Oh yeah, by the way, we do all of that while holding our breath.
People used to see a lot of mantas around. Recently, we haven't really been seeing them much. There could be many reasons why. It could be bycatch or pressure from fisheries, or it might even be the interaction that we have with the manta rays. What a lot of people still don't know is that their pictures and their video could help the research a lot as well. The spot patterns on the belly of the mantas would be similar to our fingerprints. So this way we can identify them. We can recognize them and then we keep it as a database. There's still a lot to learn and find out why they're not really in the area anymore. It's the only thing that I could do to help protect these species that I love so much.
Sharks are important to the entire ecosystem. When sharks are removed from the environment, a delicate balance is upset, causing some species to flourish and others to die out as a result. Sharks are also important to the longevity of the coral reef. By preying on the sick and the weak, sharks prevent the spread of disease and potentially devastating outbreaks. Since the largest, strongest and healthiest fish generally reproduce in greater numbers, the outcome is larger numbers of healthier fish. Fish contribute about 60% of total protein intake and are the main source of protein for lower income groups. Shark fishing is a source of income for many communities, and at least 20 million people are dependent on local fisheries for their livelihood. Depletion of sharks results in the loss of commercially important fish and shellfish species down the food chain. What does this mean for Indonesia, which is the largest shark-catching nation in the world? Humans are responsible for the death of up to 100 million sharks annually. In fact, 11,417 sharks are killed by people per hour, around 190 sharks a minute. 1/4 of all shark, ray, and chimera species are actually threatened. Sharks have been here for 400 million years. Humans arrived barely more than 125,000 years ago. Yet in that time, we have pushed sharks to the brink. And for what? For squalene, a natural compound derived from shark liver oil, used in cosmetics and vaccines, and even in the treatment of cancer. As protection so we can swim or surf fearlessly in the ocean, where sharks are rightly the apex predator. Worldwide, an average of 5 people are killed by sharks every year. To put things into perspective, for every human killed by a shark, 20 million sharks are killed by humans. It seems clear which species deserves a reputation as a relentless, remorseless killer. But the biggest cause of shark mortality is fishing for the Chinese delicacy of shark fin soup, consumed to show affluence and prosperity. 72 million sharks are killed every year to satisfy this demand. A single fin can cost up to $1,000 in Sydney's Chinatown. That's one expensive soup. A single whale shark pectoral fin can sell for up to $20,000, and a basking shark pectoral fin can fetch up to $50,000. The sheer size of these fins is enough to impress customers. In the last 50 years, the slaughter of sharks has risen by 400%, with estimates that only 10% that were in the ocean 15 to 20 years ago are still here today. By 2017, it is anticipated that 20 species of sharks could become extinct. In fact, worldwide, extinction of all species is happening at 1,000 times the expected natural rate. Tanjung Lua is a village filled with contradictions. Riotous colour and charismatic people, living on the poverty line in very basic conditions. They are struggling to live a comfortable life, but appear to live it happily. Around 5,500 people live in this small, cramped community. This is a place with no running water, no internet, simple food dependent on the local fishing catch, and everybody knows everybody. It is also a place where the smell of death lingers everywhere. Regulation of fishing laws is intermittent and corruption is rife. The price of the life of a shark is getting cheaper by the year. The price of shark fins has fallen dramatically, but the fishing has not stopped.
People, they don't care what they get, and then they're gonna bring to the market. Shark, many kind of shark over there, like bull shark, and then gray shark, white tea, or black tea, or manta, blue sea. Many kind of fish you can find it over there.
Erwin is a diving professional who has worked in the Lombok area for over 20 years. He has been to the market at Tanjung Lua on several occasions and witnessed the effects of the trade, both in the local community and underwater. At Tanjung Lua, sharks are a major target species. In March 2013, 936 sharks passed through Tanjung Lua. March is considered by fishermen to be a slow month.
Just stick in the fin and then the tail, yeah. And then the meat, you just they throw away. The teeth, yeah, of course they're gonna use for the souvenir, for necklace. Easy to find it, like the teeth of the shark on the neck of the human being.
In the past 5 years, there has been a noticeable change in the size and quantity of fish caught. This is an indication that overfishing is seriously affecting the fish population. Falling catches and sizes of sharks have forced fishermen to travel further afield to fill their holds. From Western Java to West Timor, into the Australian fishing zone. Mr. Penny has worked at Tanjung Lua as a fisherman since he was 15 years old.
Ya minimal saya dapat itu sekali tarik itu ya sekitar 6 ekor, apalagi dikasih rezeki kita oleh Allah ya nyampe di 30.
But yet the fishermen do not seem to make the connection between reduced catches and impending extinction.
Nggak bisa dihabis.
Nggak bisa habis.
Nggak bisa dihabis.
Terus ya.
Terus nganak binganak dia.
While some local people eat shark meat, it is seen as poor quality and only good for the lowest classes. In fact, it is very toxic for human consumption, containing high levels of mercury and often arsenic. Without the value of the fins, sharks would be a very low cost and undesirable commodity.
Ya tergantung karena ada sirip kan, kalau masuk ya minim ya kadang 700, 800. Ya bisa yang besar. Masyarakat Tanjung Luar ini ndak makan ndak apalagi sirip, barang berharga.
Conservationists aim to reduce the value of shark fins and manta gill rakers to a level that makes them uneconomic to fish, by reducing the demand in the Chinese and Hong Kong markets.
Ya kalau dulu mahalnya sekitar nyampe dia 6 juta, 7 juta. Kalau yang mahal-mahal. Tapi sekarang ini agak murah.
At an auction in June 2014, these 23 sharks sold together for 25.5 million rupiah, or the equivalent of $130 each. The following day, 17 sharks sold for the equivalent of $88 each. In November 2015, 34 large sharks, plus a mobile array, sold for 15 million rupiah. As little as $30 per shark. That's a reduction in value of more than 70% in just over a year.
Terus sekarang ya separuh harga. Ya paling tinggi 1 juta 1 kilo sekarang.
Crucially, demand for shark fin soup in China has waned thanks to a ban from official state banquet tables and celebrities publicly speaking out against eating the dish, which is often regarded as a status symbol. Consequently, there was an 80% decline in the price paid to fishermen at Tanjung Luar between 2007 and 2014. Wild Aid have a simple message. When the buying stops, the killing can too. However, during Chinese New Year in 2016 in Hong Kong, over 98% of the 375 restaurants surveyed said they still serve shark fin soup, overturning a common belief that consumption was declining in the city. Hong Kong people are consuming a lot more shark fin than we think, said the Hong Kong Shark Foundation. A recent advert reveals a powerful message that for every typical wedding in Hong Kong, 30 sharks die unnecessarily. Eventually, the value of shark fins will hopefully be so low that fishermen will not bother to set the long lines. But this is just not happening fast enough for sharks. Unfortunately, the trade still persists in many countries worldwide. Fishermen only see a small fraction of the value of the fins, with the most money being made by the intermediaries. Shark traders in Sumbawa and Surabaya are reportedly making big money, with shark fishermen making only a few dollars for a kilo of fins, which is then exported to Hong Kong, Singapore, China and Korea for as much as $650 per kilo. The proceeds of the catch are distributed on a share basis after the deduction of operating expenses. Fishing activity is often dominated by fishing bosses known as pungawas, who provide credit to fishers in return for purchasing their catch at a low price. Many fishermen borrow money to cover family expenses while at sea, so an unsuccessful trip means that the loans are added to the cost of the next voyage. In the mid-1990s, a Punggawa in Ujung Padang had a fleet of 43 boats, which employed members from 200 families. He took 2/3 of the catch, leaving the balance for the fishers. While we could be said to rationalize shark fishing by our fear and their perceived threat, manta rays, as close relatives of the shark, have no such associations, yet face similar threats. Mantas are gentle, graceful, and playful giants of the ocean, and have never been responsible for a single human fatality. They are known for their high maneuverability, intelligence, and elevated social and cognitive abilities, with divers citing numerous examples of them seeking assistance when entangled in fishing lines and nets, and interacting with and recognizing individual divers. Research indicates that they are at least as intelligent as elephants and dolphins. When ensnared, do they feel pain or fear? Manta rays' most prized commodity, their gill rakers, although unrecognized by practitioners of official traditional Chinese medicine, have become an unproven treatment for health issues ranging from skin rashes to asthma and even cancer. One kilo of manta gill plates can fetch $250 to $500 in China, and the total trade is worth $30 million annually. Manta flesh is of very poor quality and is almost inedible, and therefore of very little value.
Kita orang tak pernah makan juga ikan begini.
Manta meat sells for 73 cents per kilo, and the gill rakers for $130 to $250 per kilo, depending on their size.
Ya sekitar kalau begini besarnya itu bisa dia harganya 250, 300 yang besaran itu kalau kita bicarakan pari dasar ini dulu. Kalau manta itu kalau bahasa di sini kami ini saranga. Dari sini ke sini 7 juta. Iya, 7 juta karena per ekor 6 juta.
These mobula rays were auctioned for a combined total of 1.5 million rupiah, the equivalent of $180 US.
They asking many things from Indonesia, especially for the fishes. Not only for the shark or manta, they can take over to China's directly. The gill, yeah, there's the gill. They take everything.
Yet both the giant and reef manta are listed as vulnerable on the red list of threatened species. Numbers in some regions have decreased by 80% over 3 manta generations. Markings on a manta's belly, which are as individual as our fingerprints, identified a manta that had migrated from the diving mecca of Komodo National Park to another diving hotspot, Nusa Penida. Tanjung Lua, one of the biggest shark and manta fisheries in Indonesia, is situated smack bang in the middle of this route. "2014 was a time to celebrate for both sharks and rays. "21 species received protection through the appendices of the Convention on Migratory Species, including the reef manta, While this does not ban their trade, it offers a greater level of protection and regulation through supervision and accountability. Thresher sharks are the second most threatened of shark species and listed as vulnerable on the Red List of Threatened Species. However, on one visit, we saw a thresher at the market. The tail from this thresher was removed and added to the pile of fins to be auctioned for the day. These hammerheads, which sold for around $100 each, may have been fished from a nearby population at The Magnet, a famous dive site near Sekotone, only 90 kilometers away, where tourists pay over 1 million rupiah per person for the possibility of diving with them. Their eyes had been cut off in a futile attempt to prevent identification before they were brought to the market.